My guest this week is from LA, so I thought I'd tell a little story about the first time I went to LA. I've only been to LA once, and it was a great time because I was with my friend Isabel, and we went there for a really short time. I'm talking, got there on a Monday afternoon, left on a Wednesday afternoon. And I was on a mission. I was looking for a man to park his Big Mac truck right in this little garage. So Isabel, who is and was in a very happy relationship at the time, but your girl, she's an incredible wing woman. You gotta have the girlfriends who are in a relationship but only want to see you fly. And by fly, I mean fuck. They're invaluable. So I go to this, I guess it was a nail salon on a boulevard somewhere to get my vagine waxed. Now, I know you're thinking, especially if you're in your early 20s listening to this, why'd you get your pussy waxed? Let that bush breathe, girl. But you gotta understand, this is not a frame of mind that was pushed on me when I was coming into my womanhood. I was always around the wax crew, and I won't apologize for wanting a snow globe kitty cat. So I survived the wax on this, I don't know, haunted house, nail salon, trail, murder den. And me and Isabel are ready to hit the scene. So we go to the first bar, and the vibe was Catholic church meets quiet disco. And there's a man, Eureka, and he's doable. So we start to lay the groundwork pour moi, and he's talking about how he's a wine worker. That's a person who sells wine, a wine distributor. That's it. That's the word I'm looking for. And he's presenting single. In fact, I go as far to say as he's presenting single as fuck. And then he dropped the bomb. His background on his phone was his wife and his child. Ugh, it just shattered me. Guys are so sleazy sometimes. But I definitely got the impression that he did not want me to see this background. And then he started acting really weird with us. She and I shared a look that was just kind of like, this motherfucker is married. And it was just not what I was going for, you know what I mean? Then, not even 5 minutes later, after he outed himself as taken, his coworker walks in. She is not pleased to see me chatting with her fellow wine worker. She was a real-life version of Svetlana from Shameless. If you've ever watched that show, you can imagine. She was just not happy to see us chatting because I'm getting the impression that these two are banging and that maybe the wife on the background of the phone has no idea. He left with her almost instantly. I mean, this guy, he's just got to work on getting his story straight, and Godspeed is what I say. And then we go to bar number 2, which is called Harvard and Stone in Los Feliz, but I did and always will refer to it as Coker and Stratton. They are a hilarious comedy duo. Check them out if you don't know them already. The bar name, it just wouldn't stick with me. So Harvard and Stone became Coker and Stratton, and this bar was dope. Real early 90s graveyard vibes. We perched, we drank, and I wasn't seeing any talent worthy of the old silky smooth bald cap down below. And then I saw him. Chad. Chad was a member of the live band that we had just, dare I say, mustered through. And that's okay that we mustered through that band. I wasn't thinking with my big head, if you know what I mean. I was thinking with my little head. So I could forgive some bad band music in a bar. What I could not forgive was Chad's bandmate. Let's just call him the worst. Chad's bandmate naturally sees me talking to Chad, sees Isabel by my side, playing it cool as a cuke, and also starts talking to us. He starts asking us so many questions about the show that just went on. Would I have called it a poor man's No Doubt? Maybe the old me would have. The new me has found peace and light and love, so I wouldn't say something that mean. But the old me, yeah, she might have said they were the poor man's No Doubt. No doubt. And he was a close talker, so he was all up in our face pre-COVID. This would not fly in 2021. He was kind of a douche, and he's kind of a kook blook, is what I think the dictionary definition would be, a kook blook. And he blooked Chad's kook from the deep sea down below because he was so freaking annoying. The thing with Isabel is, if someone's bothering her, much like me, if someone's bothering her, she's not going to fake it or act like you're not bothering her, especially after a couple drinks. So both of us were just kind of like, Chad, get your friend out of our face. And Chad stayed loyal to his bandmate, which he shouldn't have done if he wanted to get his dick wet. Isabel and I then went to a diner and ate cheese fries. I also think I had a milkshake. So I'm sorry to say I didn't get laid, but there's always next time.
Duh.
Welcome to the Rocky Rundown, where you get to learn a little bit about my week. Shocker, guys, this week was very chill. Still not vaxxed, which is a bummer, but I will let you in on a little secret. Hinge, the dating app, is getting a little crazy. I'm going to break it down for you. Hinge has gone full-blown monetization. That's right. They have a feature called the Rose feature, where they have figured out exactly who is your perfect type. Then they give you about 7 of these guys. Now, these guys will not show up in your regular rotation, okay? They are only in the rose section. And you are given 1 rose per week to give to one of the curated gentlemen. And then once you use that rose up, you don't get another rose for 7 days later unless you pay $30 for 12 more roses. What a racket. Will I pay? I don't know. I don't even like to pay for electricity. I'll sit up in this bitch in the dark, and now you want me to pay for roses on an app? It's like The Bachelorette without the perks of a guaranteed husband, guys, and I'm not here for it. I will probably end up paying, but maybe I won't. I don't know. Are you singles out there paying for the rose feature on Hinge? Or are all my listeners on Raya? If you're on Raya, let's talk. This Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be doing another edition of Wild Wednesdays on IGTV. My Wild Wednesday guest this week will be Shane Smitty. He is the host of The High Cost of Living, and I'm really excited, so make sure you tune in at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My guest this week is fellow podcast hostess with the mostest, Kat Walsh. Her podcast is called Trip on This. It can be described as Humans of New York meets magic mushrooms. Her wild word was Halloween. Spooky, scary. And after her wild night story, we confabbed a little about our own personal journey with mushrooms. I just want to say really quickly that this is a disclaimer that I am not condoning the use of any illegal substances. I'm simply sharing my own journey, and I hope you'll take that how you will. All that being said, I want to thank you for listening again. I want to welcome new listeners, and to everyone who has liked, shared, subscribed, rated, and reviewed. Thank you so much. It really does make a difference. You can follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Wild Nights with Rocky. And please, put your ears together for my wild night conversation with Kat Walsh. Kat, thank you for doing the podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm really excited because I am a big fan of your podcast. How has your quarantine experience been so far? You're out in LA. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So quarantine 2020 and quarantine 2021 is a little different now, just
Right.
because I think we're more ready this time.
Yeah.
My original quarantine, I actually, it was a giant blessing for me. A trip on this was born from it.
Mm-hmm.
I was always somebody who was constantly at work. I used to have I used to work in marketing. I always worked too much.
Yeah.
And so the idea of just being home and being with myself, honestly, all that alone time allowed me to see what I wanted to change.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful. It was
Yeah.
really great. I mean, look, I miss seeing my friends and going out, but I'm like, we'll get back. Right now, it's been nice, like reflection time for me.
I feel the same way. I feel like I was at a point where I was really missing people and, wondering when this is going to be over, getting really resentful, and the state of the world in general, just
Yeah.
feeling sad and icky. But
Yeah.
now that I've kind of taken advantage of this platform and been able to connect with people through the podcast and
Yeah.
meet different kinds of people, make new kinds of friends, it's actually been super fulfilling. So I can
Yeah.
relate to you a lot on that.
Yeah, I think I've heard that a lot with people just in quarantine doing things that they would have never done before. Truly,
Mhm.
and I don't know if this is the case for you, but like there is no podcast without quarantine having happened, because that shifted everything for me. It also gave me time. I got resourceful, and I got to see like what do I want to do in like Cat 2.0, because this is not knowing how long it was going to last, but
Right.
it has been, yeah, once I got past the initial just overall sadness for the world, I really started to go like, all right, how much time am I going to spend in this? And now I started thinking about, okay, well, what can I do?
Yeah. Yeah. And how
So
can you, and in a way, I mean, not to be like, oh, podcast, but we are like on our podcast shit right now.
yeah.
So I do think they are kind of an escape for people, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a way to connect, right? Like
Mhm.
it's great meeting you,
Yeah,
and
same.
just I think a lot of people are hungry for human connection in a lot of ways, and I think podcasts are a great way to do that. And everybody's got their own flavor, and that's what I love about it. Like I know everyone's saying, there's a lot of podcasts. I'm like, but sometimes there's just a few that I'm just like, but it's just that like special sauce. Like I connect with that person, and
Yeah.
that's not everyone's going to connect to just Joe Rogan. No offense to Joe, like he's
No,
great,
no.
but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's not everybody's market. He gets great
Right.
guests, and I do listen to some of his episodes if I like the guest and
Yeah.
I enjoy the conversation very much, but it's not for everybody. And that's the
Yeah.
thing about podcasts, there's very niche
Yeah.
things. One
Yeah.
of the other things that is kind of a bummer about the quarantine is we don't get to celebrate holidays the way we used to.
I know. I know. I've felt that actually for the first time ever this Christmas. I was
Yeah.
at home by myself. My parents are a little bit older, so
Uh-huh.
we're being extra careful with them.
Of
And
course.
I had like a breakfast with them, and then I spent the day. I watched Space Odyssey 2001 because I'd actually never seen it, and like
Yeah.
I was just doing my own thing, and I guess just trying to stay positive and
Yeah.
like treat myself and take a bath, and yeah, and just allow for change without resisting and holding on to what was, and knowing like whatever's going to come, I think is going to be better. I think we're still in this like tough time, but
Hmm.
I do have optimism that
Yeah.
we are heading in the right direction, and hopefully a more connected place, like that, just like you were saying, like it is connecting people in a different way,
Yeah.
and I hope that continues.
I think it will. I think it will evolve very positively.
Yeah.
And one of the great things about podcasting is we get to reminisce on stories. So,
Yep.
Kat's wild word that she gave us was Halloween. So, why don't
Yes.
you go into your Halloween story?
All right, all right. So I gotta like kick it back, all right, because I have to
Okay.
set it up here a little bit. All right, so I played softball growing
Okay.
up. I'm from the Valley, so I'm
Nice.
from LA, and I went to Granada Hills High School.
Okay.
Uh, on the baseball team, we had a player named Ryan Braun. He's a very big baseball player. He went
Mhm.
on to become the MVP of the National League for the Milwaukee Brewers.
Oh, nice.
He went to Miami. Like he's a very, if anyone's listening that knows baseball, they're going to know who Ryan is.
Exactly.
Now, Ryan and
Yeah.
yeah. And so Ryan and I knew each other in high school. He's 2 years older than me, but
Mhm.
we both softball, baseball.
Yeah.
Um, he went to Miami. I went away to Villanova. We came back and kind of like reconnected a little bit, but not much. Like we were still kind of doing our own thing.
Right.
Fast forward a little bit. I used to work at a large talent agency called CAA.
Yes.
And are you familiar with it?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So I used to work at CAA, and I didn't know this, but we actually represented Ryan. Our sports division represented him. And
Yeah,
so
CAA is a huge agency, right?
yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was whew, what a time. What a time
Yeah.
that was. I'm you know what, that I learned so much about myself, and I'm grateful not to be an agent now, but that really allowed me to see also like how tough I was and how you have to have a crazy work ethic to be in an
Right.
agency like
I'm
that.
picturing maybe a kinder, gentler Ari Gold.
Oh my God. I was actually like a Lloyd on steroids.
Okay. Got it.
I was like I was between Lloyd and Ari. So I ended up becoming an agent trainee. And so that's kind of like baby agent. And it was that was a crazy time. But that's where this story is going to be, because I have a lot of just like Hollywood stories like that. So all right. So I'm at CAA, and Ryan now wins the MVP this year. This is probably like 2011, I think.
Go Ryan.
Yeah. So he wins the MVP of the National League.
Okay.
We're throwing this big celebration for him. And so in the agency, and I don't know if it somehow maybe like the partners knew that I knew him. They're like, you're going to be the one to offer this award. I do. Offer the award to him. We like reconnect. He ends up that night. We've got this like big party that we always do for agents and connect again. And then finally like truly reconnect by this point. So now it's like, okay, we've seen each other. I'm at the same agency, blah, blah, blah. So he's like, do you want to come? What?
We're pals. We're back to our rhythm.
Like we're now it's beyond just like, what's up? Haven't seen you, you know?
Yes.
So he invites me to Halloween with them. And I was like, sick, like, hell yeah. Like, I'm just like, so we meet now. And he's like, okay, we're all going to meet, and we're going to meet at my place in Malibu.
Yeah.
And we're going to take a party bus to this house.
Okay.
I would show up. First of all, this house is stunning. Like unreal, like over the cliffs in the water. I was like, damn, Ryan, like, I knew you were doing well, but like, okay, you're doing really well. I think there was another like basketball player that was like Ted Miller, maybe, or maybe that's the wrong name. But anyway, so we all get in this party bus, and I'm like, this is cool. There's another baseball player there. I want to say his name is Barry Zito. He was like a pitcher for the Giants, whatever. We roll up at this like bomb spot. We're there. I'm like, drinking too much. Like, I don't really even drink that much anymore, but at the time I did. And I'm just Chuck Liddell. Do you know who that is?
Chuck Liddell is the fighter, right?
Yeah. Chuck Liddell is there. I'm like giving Chuck Liddell like shit. I've got I've like stepped into like sports land. I was like, where the fuck am I?
Right.
And
but you're thriving, right? You're like making
like I'm like talking to people. Yeah, I'm like, honestly, I'm like feeling myself way too much because I'm like drinking too much. I'm like giving shit. I was a vampire that year. So I like I have a picture of me pretending to bite Chuck Liddell. God, not cute. Eventually, so we're just like going through this like party gets all crazy. And I remember I see a guy that's sitting there, and he's like, nobody's talking to him. Okay. No one. And he looks like all bummed out, and I'm feeling bad. I was like, who is he? Like, I want to go. But I finally say to my friend, I go, is it just me? Or does that guy look like Barry Bonds? And she goes, that is Barry Bonds. I was like, no shit. I was like, oh my God, I'm at a party with Barry Bonds. Like, and nobody's talking to him. And I felt so bad. Of course, he's in LA. So not that surprising. And then we ended up just like partying that night and ended up going back. And it was pretty epic.
Did you talk to Barry Bonds?
Oh, you know what? I didn't. And I would have. now I would have, because, but then, okay, first of all, I'm sure he didn't look like he wanted to be talked to. Now, that's also probably because he was like, nobody's talking to me. You know, like, I don't know what came first, because nobody was talking to him, or because his vibe was like, don't talk to me. In hindsight, I would have gone up to him now, because I'm sure he was just It was just some kind of, you know, when somebody's feeling uncomfortable, nobody's talking to them, they put on like a front. I'm sure
Yeah,
that
of
he's
course.
everybody's human. And so now I feel bad that I like talk to everybody but Barry Bonds. I was like, okay.
Well, I have two
I don't
things
want
to
to
say
bother
about
him.
that. I have
Yeah.
two things to say about that. One, this was probably early to mid 20s for you, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like 25. No, yeah, yeah. 26.
So right in that cusp, you learn how to be a person just by living life. So
Yes.
now this version of Kat could probably go up to Barry Bonds and talk to him if in that state that he was in and talk his ear off.
Absolutely. And I bet he would have been so open to it and
So
warm to it.
receptive.
But like you were saying, I've changed so much. Like I was some, oh my God, for anybody, it's really funny because I'm on TikTok because my podcast and I'm brand new to it. And there's like a lot
Same.
of like 20-year-olds like hating on people in their 30s and be like, what's so great about it? I was like, because my 26-year-old self didn't have the fucking balls to talk to Barry Bonds, but me now, I would have gone up and not been like trying to like front, but like genuinely so excited to have met him. And like,
Yeah.
regardless if you're a fan of Barry Bonds or not, he's a spectacular player.
Of course.
And
Of
like, you know
course.
what I mean? And
Yeah.
so it's one of those things where I was like, if I get around two, I'm talking to him.
Absolutely. And you have to. And you tell him the story. I saw you at this
Yeah.
party. And I'm sure he'll
Yeah.
remember the party. He'll be like, oh my God, I was so bummed that day. You caught me on an off day.
Yeah.
He'll
Here I'm
probably
in
give him
LA for like Halloween and 0% people have talking to me. Like, excellent. Okay.
Yeah. Now, did you end up staying the night at this party?
No, we ended up going back to Ryan's and then it was just like partied more. And then I eventually went home and it was a pretty fun night. Just
Yeah.
the whole experience was the first like big, like Hollywood type moment.
Did you feel like, in a sense, at that point, whatever made it is to you, did you feel like I hit it? I made it. I'm in this circle now.
Yeah. I mean, it was maybe not like in the circle, but it was definitely one of those moments where I was like, there's not a lot of people in the world that could say that they had this night. Like I'm
Yeah.
sitting with like the MVP of like the National League and we're partying and I'm at his house and like I'm invited and like there's like very special thing and like all these baseball, Chuck Liddell and all these big baseball players. I just remember thinking like, oh, like this is, how'd I get here?
Yeah.
And then just thinking like, oh yeah, my roots. That's right. I played softball and he's just a baseball player. That's what it really came down to, is it actually humanized the whole experience again. Because I'm
Right.
like, oh yeah, right. You're just a baseball player and I'm a softball player and we were both good. Like
Yeah.
that's it. Like we were just both good. And then he got, you know, he went on to do really well and get paid for being really good, but he was just a really nice guy. He was
Yeah.
a good dude that like we grew up in the valley. And it's
And
just it's interesting when you like get to actually like it takes the mystery away a little bit. You're like, oh yeah, you're just a person
yeah. And we
doing
just
well.
ended up getting to this level together.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
you think about it, everything from childhood to adulthood is just different circles that you run with. And once you get to know, even if you're in the field, if you're in the field of law, if there's a bunch of lawyers, like they
Yeah.
all know lawyers who went to college together. If you know any kind of field, what's the saying? The cream rises to the top. Is
Mm-hmm.
that the saying? Is that the
Yeah.
disgusting saying?
Yeah, right. Like, ooh, delish. For all those vegans out there, I'm just kidding.
Like that's what it feels like to me. It feels like
Yeah.
you find your people no matter what. Everybody
Yeah.
gravitates to each other. And I feel like maybe you're the kind of person that thinks that way, that, you know, kind of feels like, you know, you find your tribe no matter where you are in life. You kind of gravitate and get magnetized to the people that are meant to be in your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that goes for everything, right?
Yeah.
And I've gone through a lot of big shifts in my life lately too. And really I realize how important relationships and friendships have been over the years and
Yes.
how they come and go. And I'm really also for myself, like practicing non-attachment in the way where I'm like, it's okay for things to change with that. And like, not to say like an expiration, but just allowing for the magnetism at the moment for who you are in the moment. Because the truth is we're always changing. And um, if the people that you're around aren't changing with you, or you guys are changing separately, like it's okay to go do your own thing and not
Yeah.
not force force it just because of time. Like, I just don't believe in that. Like, I have friends that I've been friends with since I was 3,
Yeah.
only because we still connect.
Yeah.
And we've changed, we've gone back and forth, and like, we've gone through like pockets and things like that. But at the end of the day,
Evolutions.
yeah, at the end, we evolved on a very similar track. So now I'm seeing what that friend I'm talking about tomorrow, who just had a baby, and we've been friends for 31 years, and I'm
Wow.
34. We've been friends since we were 3. Talk about
Wow.
changing. And yeah. So
That's crazy. That's
yeah.
so, yeah, but I think people evolve with each other. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about your podcast.
Yeah. Yeah.
I discovered you, I don't know how. You popped up on my Instagram feed. I
Hmm.
think we might be following the same page or something, and maybe
Okay.
that's the Stoner Morning Show.
Yeah. 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 I was,
I know one of the guys on that, Sean Wickens, and
mm,
shout out to the Stoner Morning Show.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, and maybe that, because I saw that was the only thing that we had in common, but I just was really drawn to your graphics and just your general look and everything. And I go, okay, this is probably something I'd be interested in. So I started
Awesome.
following your page, and then I started listening to your podcast, which I know the origin of how your podcast started because I listen. But if you don't mind telling everybody how it got started.
Yeah. 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 So coming back to your quarantine question,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
This relates because, okay, the best way I would describe it, even on a pulling back from the actual logistics of starting it, is psychedelics changed my life, period.
Right.
So Trip on This, for those that are listening or watching that aren't familiar, Trip on This is a podcast about psychedelics. And the best way to describe it is kind of like a Humans of New York meets magic mushrooms kind of vibe,
Excellent.
really leaning into like a storytelling device, because there's a lot of podcasts right now about the science of psychedelics and certainly like ceremonial aspects of psychedelics. But I saw kind of a hole for just honestly what I would consider like an everyday person that's just interested, that they want to maybe explore like LSD or magic mushrooms.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like a whole ceremonial context, but maybe they just want to have a camping trip or like
Yeah.
the fun aspect. And look, it's at festival cultures, and
Mm-hmm.
nobody was really talking about kind of like the elephant in the room. So that's one piece where I was like, I want to show up for people that are kind of brand new to this. Like because I'm not like a psychonaut for years and years and years. My psychedelic journey began about 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And
That was the first time you've ever tried them?
well, no, okay. I
Okay.
had a mushroom experience at 16, which was bananas. Oh my goodness gracious.
Good
It
bananas or
was
bad bananas? Just bananas,
okay. The
bananas.
first hour was good bananas, and then they went. If I had a handbook of like what not to do on a magic mushroom experience,
Yeah.
that's what I did on my
Yeah.
first magic mushroom
Gotcha.
experience. Yeah, it like I was like completely in the wrong setting. I was with somebody who had never done it before.
Mm.
They were like the most psychedelic mushrooms I've ever seen in my entire life. Somebody was like who had like facial hair was turning into a werewolf in front of my eyes.
Oh
Like I thought
God.
it was never going away. Like all the stories that you would think with mushrooms. And it's only because they didn't properly prepare.
Of
And
course.
like that's a good way for me to come back to. I wish I had like a Trip on This, or even like a lot of like there's a lot of great resources now about
Yeah.
what to expect, like what's it like. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's really kind of the essence of it, is people talking about their trips, the good, the bad, or
Mm-hmm.
the difficult, and kind of some profound transformations.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And so for me, like psychedelics straight up changed my life. Like
Yeah.
Kat 2 years ago would have told you, why would anybody listen to me? Like, why would I had myself in such a small box of what I was able to accomplish, what I should do. And I actually remember the day I was like tripping my face off
Mm-hmm.
watching my friend's show. And I just remember I had nothing to do with anything. I just suddenly thought to myself, I can do anything that I want,
Yep.
actually. Like, and I suddenly, like, I remember being like startled by my thought, like, what?
Oh my God, that gave me chills.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just startled by it. I was like, and it was like this light bulb moment. I wasn't working on myself.
Yeah.
It just came to me, and I was like, and then that just spiraled from there. And it just, and just, I was like, okay, I started to like, and I have a very big spiritual practice, and I'm into very like every day I'm working on myself in some way, and
Wow, yeah.
meditating
Mm-hmm.
and letting go of old blocks and things and just old programming at the end of the
Yeah.
day. That's what psychedelics did for me is they started breaking down old programs that said that to keep me small. And I suddenly realized that's a lie. Like we've
Yeah.
been fed a lot of lies, like just societally a lot of lies. And it just was so expansive. And I felt very called now, fast forward to quarantine, to create something. I was
Hmm.
asked to do a podcast, realized I had a knack for it and I loved it. And then I then it was so it was like one of those things like, what should I do? Like, it was like, I was like about psychedelics, like it has to be. And I
Yeah.
remember
Yeah.
Trip on This. It was the first name I wrote down. And I was texting my two girlfriends, the name, tripped into the bathroom, but like didn't hurt myself, started laughing. I was like, kind of like look up to like the universe. I'm like, so you like it? Trip on This. Like, all right.
We're doing this.
Oh, okay.
Thank
So
you. Yeah.
thank you. Like, okay. All right. Perfect. So that's the genesis of it all.
Well, I agree with everything you've said. In my own personal psychedelic journey, the first time I ever did them, I've always been super, super fortunate that I've been in a safe environment
Mm-hmm.
when I've done them. And I'm the kind of person where if I even see a piece of plastic, and I'm not vegetarian or anything like that, and I could
Mm-hmm.
recycle more and I could make my footprint smaller, of course.
Sure.
But when I'm on psychedelics, when I'm on mushrooms, if I see a piece of plastic, I'm like, please get that away from me. I'm having a visceral reaction to it. Like things could go bad
Yeah.
if I keep looking at it. I was at a friend's house doing them. She has a really big property right in
Mm-hmm.
the woods.
Sounds perfect to do mushrooms.
Oh, yes, it is perfect. And I couldn't even look at the grill on her deck and the houses that were built behind. I had to just look at the
Mm.
trees.
Wow. You know what, that it just strikes me as the one thing with like the plastic thing is look, I think when you're on a psychedelic, you get very, very connected to nature, right? Like
Yes.
and that's because we are part of nature. I think the illusion that we've created is that we're separated from nature, but like
Hmm.
we're not. We've just created separation from it. But I think when you are on a psychedelic, and especially when you do have access to like nature and whatnot, it kind of brings you back home, if you will.
Hmm. Yes.
And yeah, like it could let to me, I always feel very connected to the collective on a psychedelic. It's like it feels like a collective, not a collective conscious. Yeah, actually a little bit, like a little bit of a collective conscious where um I'm more aware of the surroundings of yeah, what's out of place, what doesn't quite fit in,
Hmm.
or what's potentially like harmful, like you're saying with plastic, that's not good for obviously nature, and
No.
it really opens up areas in your mind or in your subconscious or a greater conscious that is communicating to
Yeah.
us differently.
This and to anyone listening who maybe has never dabbled in psychedelics or is not educated in it, what I'm
Mhm.
about to ask Kat might sound a little crazy to you, but I think she and I maybe will
Yeah.
understand the question I'm going to ask her. So I ask everyone to maybe not judge. Have you ever talked to a tree on psychedelics? Have you
Oh
ever been
my.
like, yeah? See what I
Yeah.
mean, everybody?
Oh my God. I'm like a total tree hugger on psychedelics. The funny part is I do it now without them. Like, because
Yes, me too.
once you're like tapped in, once you actually, okay, you can see nature, but when you experience nature, because that is the biggest difference that I would say is like my experience of nature suddenly becomes a very different. Instead of me looking at a tree, I'm like, oh my, you can feel the life force of it. You're like,
Yeah.
wow, like this is incredible. And so one, all the time.
Yeah.
Like I actually had a mushroom trip at my parents' house. They have a huge pine tree and I
Yeah.
named him Darius and I hug him all the time.
Shout out to
Mushrooms
Darius.
or not. Yeah. Shout out to Darius. He's the man. But yeah, I hug him all the time. And when I did a mushroom trip there, it was really even more deeply connecting. But yeah, it just connects you to the subtle realms. There's
Hmm.
a lot more just life force. I think there's just a lot more life than what we can see,
What I
truthfully.
what I find very interesting about mushrooms in particular
Mhm.
are what people say their experiences when they're done when they've had a really positive trip. They
Yeah.
always say literally the answer is love.
Yeah.
It's like the Beatles song, All You Need Is Love. Like that is the root of when you are tripping balls on psychedelics. You
Yeah.
learn, oh my God, the answer to fixing everything is love.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like an actual frequency, like not just a word, but like its own energy of like love. And that's what I think breaks down also what we're talking about, like the separation from others
Mm-hmm.
and everyone, because it is kind of this like through line that you feel for everything, including yourself. And a lot of times when you are having a difficult trip, it's confronting aspects of yourself that usually you aren't loving.
Yeah.
It's really, and that's why it can sometimes be difficult, but it's trying to bring you back into a state where we are always in that place and we're always it's yeah, I mean, I feel it all the time, and I now, because I've done so many psychedelics in my life, I really
Mm-hmm.
try to live that way all the time.
Yeah.
It's why I meditate like often, because
Same.
it's like kicked up a gear now. Now it doesn't feel like I'm just closing my eyes for a certain amount of time, but I don't even feel like I'm in my body now. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I'm swimming in source energy, just
Yeah.
pure love frequency, and it's pretty wild.
It is wild. I feel sometimes when I meditate, because I can now feel it if I don't meditate, which is almost never. I meditate
Yeah,
the second I wake
that's
up.
great.
If I don't meditate, if for some reason I have a jarring morning or I have to get started really quick and I, poor time management or whatever, I
Yeah.
can feel it the rest of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. It's such a beautiful act of self-love, and it's so I resisted it so hard. Like most people probably listening, they're like, "Ugh, meditation sounds so boring." It starts like a muscle to me. Like it is a
Yeah.
muscle. Like in the beginning, it's not that fun.
No.
But then like anything else, once you start realizing how good it feels and how much you are actually setting up your day for success, because you feel um it's like you, instead of needing the outside world to be a certain way for you to have a good day, you are self-generating that good feeling. You are it. You don't need anything else to do it. And when you meditate and you really allow yourself to get deeper and deeper and really push yourself past the times your mind, it's okay, don't get mad at yourself when your mind starts thinking of things. Mine still does that, and
Yeah.
I just forgive myself. I like push it back. I'm like, okay, great thought bubble, and then come back. And once you get better at it, you realize, oh yeah, I don't need good news today. I don't need somebody else to, you know make joy inside my body. Like I
No.
can, this is a solo job at the end of
Yeah.
the day. And that's the unbreakable part. I think that's what quarantine's teaching a lot of us, is how do you go inside and create harmony inside yourself?
For your own podcast, do you
Yeah.
have anybody who's like a dream guest? If I could get this person, I would just be so overjoyed.
Yeah. I've got two. I got two. All right. So the first one that's probably a little bit more attainable is a man named Aubrey Marcus. Have you
Aubrey
heard of him?
Marcus. I have not,
Yes.
no, but I'm going to write
So
his name down right now.
yeah, yeah. So he talks about um really the more ceremonial aspect of mushrooms. I did an ayahuasca ceremony, and I didn't tell anybody I was doing it because I didn't want them to put their own opinions in and like scare me. It's already scary enough. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'm not telling anyone that I was doing it. I didn't tell them until after.
Mm-hmm.
And after I told my friends, they're like, oh my God, you should check out RB Marcus. And I would love to be able to reflect to him how I thought I was experiencing this transcendent, transformational moment. Like what I went through, I had never met anybody else who had had an ayahuasca experience, and I had nobody to talk to about it. And I was like, something just happened to me, like
Yeah.
really profoundly just happened to me. Like, and I was, somebody recommended him, and I listened to him, and he talks a lot about ayahuasca and a lot about about plant ceremonies. And I just really, he's so articulate. Like, wow. Like I'm also just, in terms of his ability to speak and connect, he's a master communicator. And so just as a role model, I look at him as somebody who also podcasts
Okay.
and yeah, and just reflect back to him and then really then talk to him and hear his stories. Cause he's usually the one on the other side of things. He'll talk about him, but not in the same way. And yeah, it'd just be fun to I remember the first time listening to him and I thought he's the first time when I was listening to him, I was like, I would like to do a podcast one day. And then quickly my brain's like, who are you? Blah, 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 whatever. And then psychedelics came along. It's like, actually, yeah, you should do this.
Yes.
You should do this. And I was like, okay, yeah, you should do this. And it's been a true blessing.
Can you say the second one?
What?
Can you share the second one?
Really funny. I don't know why. I don't even really listen to her a lot, but I just think it would be really funny if Oprah called me one day. And she would, and like that, she was like, I would like to do magic mushrooms with you. And then I would like you to come on to Super Soul. And then I want to talk about our experience together.
Oh my God.
Wouldn't that be cool? I don't know if she'd ever do it or if she's done it, but
if that doesn't go on your fucking vision board.
I know. I've actually had like visions of like, and the funny thing is like, I don't even know why she like stuck on my head to do it. She just like came to me and I was like, yeah, just because she seems like the type of woman that would, but she's she's spiritual and she probably already has, let's be honest. She probably already has, but if she hasn't, she would be such, such an introspective, open person. And because I've been with a lot of people in their first time tripping, and it's really beautiful, like especially with adults, having them express what they're going through. A lot of times people tripping for the first time like to explain what they're experiencing, just to know, like, is this normal? And like, just to hear people being like, that's totally normal. Like, yeah. And like, that's what settles you down. That's why having somebody good to trip with is important. They're not like scaring you or making you nervous. And so, yeah, I like had this weird vision, like meditation, like she just popped in my head that I was at her house. She's called, she's like, you want to eat much? Like for me to bring them. I was like, just tripping with Oprah.
Oh my God. I hope that comes true for you. I love Super Soul Sunday.
Wouldn't that be funny? Like mark this day. All right,
would be amazing.
Now it's imprinted in the universe.
Wait, we spoke it into existence. I would not think that would be out of the realm, because I will say, as a listener of your podcast, I listen to it a lot if I'm going on a walk or something. Sometimes I'm not home when I'm listening, and your guests will talk about books that they've read or this person or that person. And I'm always like, oh, I got to write that down. Oh, I got to write that down. And I have my phone in my hand. I could just write it down, but I never do. But I really feel like every episode of your podcast, I've listened to the first 6, the most recent one, and because you know why? And anybody who, I encourage everyone listening to please follow Kat's podcast, Trip on This. But the reason I listened from the beginning and didn't just start, like sometimes people just start the latest episode, because it is a storytelling podcast and people sharing their experience, I feel like you can start from the beginning.
Yeah, you can. I mean, there's you could just pick anybody who just kind of like grabs you from because they're also episodic, and it's been a really interesting journey for me too. Now the way that they're going to be rolled out will be a little bit more chronological, but it's been just as somebody who's new into all this to just see my own progression, I guess. Like when you do start from the beginning, like the beginning one, the first one is actually one of the first ones I ever did. It was like, I think it was the first. And all the new ones coming up will just be, it'll be nice to see like, okay, the only difference really will be like, as me as a person watching my own performance and being like, okay, Kat, you're getting more comfortable. Like, here's what you can work on, and trying not to have a critical eye. And, I say like and way too much. I'm trying to work on that, but
it's hard.
Thank you for saying that. And I really appreciate it. I'm glad you like the stories. I've had incredible guests though, at the end of the day, like really, really fortunate and blessed to have so many likable people, just straight up likable, not just like articulate, but I'm like, no wonder you guys are on this. Like half of them are my friends, but like a lot of them weren't. They were just introduced to me, and it's all been like very like gut, and that's what I would say to everybody listening to this is this whole process for me has been incredibly intuitive. The moments that I try to overthink is generally when I misstep.
Yeah.
I could feel it even with guests. I could feel it with, and I haven't yet because I can, but like I'm, now I feel very blessed that I have a lot of people reaching out to be on it. And, it's like, I know almost in a second what based on that. And I'm really learning to trust that.
Good.
And thank you for reflecting it. I think it's worked out pretty well because I do really dig everybody that's been on it.
Good. Well, can you just give everybody one more where they can follow you on social, what days your episodes come out, some stuff, some plugs like that?
For sure. Okay. So Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, it's at @triponthis_pod. Again, that's at @triponthis_pod. Facebook, it's /triponthis_pod. What else?
TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok is @triponthis_pod too. I have to say, I'm not actually doing TikTok content. It's basically what my Facebook or my Instagram content is. I'll get there. I'll become a real good TikToker at some point. But
I'm right there with you.
yeah, I just got so much going on, like a one-man show here. I'm like, I'm thinking like more content. And then new episodes every Tuesday, and I'm coming out with every Friday. I've got this like story time with Kat, really short little segments of my own personal psychedelic experiences that I'm releasing. I have a new one coming out tomorrow. Perfect. About my first 2 times doing acid.
Fabulous. So, I cannot wait to listen to them. Kat, I want to thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you for having me.
This was a really special conversation for me. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So
thank
thanks,
you.
Kat.
Likewise. Thank you.
Everybody follow Kat. We'll talk soon. Is it